Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Kate Wexell. Please remember to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more college content and hit the thumbs up button. So I am currently on Zoom right now because I actually wanted to share my screen. I have been talking to a couple of people about essays for college applications, and I definitely didn't know a whole lot about them this past year whenever I was applying as a senior. However, I have just been grinding on those essays for transfer applications at the current moment. And let me tell you, the more thought you put into it, the longer it takes, but the more rewarding the outcome is. So going through the transfer application process, it's actually been a little bit different trying to write your essays because now you have that experience of being in college. And now you're thinking about, okay, what is it that actually matters to me? Because at this point, it's not just, oh, I'm applying because I need to go to a school regardless, that's just the necessary next step for me. With transfer applications, you are sort of taking that a step farther and saying, this didn't work for me. Now I'm going to evaluate what's going on in my life, what needs to be changed, and display how to fix it in order to achieve my real goals in life. Because that's the thing, education is both one of the most rewarding things in life, but it's also just a stepping stone. So I have seen a lot of essay strategy videos out there, and honestly, they are not very informative. Because here's the thing, nobody can teach you, oh, here is an exact formula to use. Nobody knows the stories that you have. All that we can do is read your essays and give feedback, and obviously if the grammar isn't correct, then yeah, you might want to go back and rewrite. However, I wanted to talk about sort of some things that have really helped me out. Before I started writing any of my transfer essays, I actually reviewed some questions from a presentation. So I am part of a program here at my university called the Deaton Scholars Program, and it's all about international development and global issues. So this was actually one of our initial presentations that somebody else gave us. And so I'm going to show their PowerPoint because I don't think that they would mind if I share it. And so this was meant to talk about what projects should you be focusing on, because the whole thing was about project planning, project development, and then now this semester we're working on project implementation and evaluation. So those are super, super useful skills for just about anything, for working on a team, all of that. But since we were focusing on global issues, they really wanted to stress to us what actually matters to you. And so here was a presentation that was given to provide some prompts. And so how exactly does this relate to writing essays? Well, what do colleges want to see? They want to see how are you going to benefit their community and how are you going to benefit from being a part of their community. All right, so it's sort of this give and take. You want to put something in and they want you to get something out of it. And they want to know that whatever you get out of it, you're going to make a meaningful difference in the world. So thinking about, oh, I just want to go to make a lot of money, maybe not so great. But thinking about, oh, I am super, super passionate about this one specific topic and issue, and I want to solve that, yeah, that's amazing. So how do you decide what topic for your college essay to write about? I want to encourage all of you that as I'm going through this, write down some of these questions and then sit down, give yourself 5 minutes to answer each question. And do this long before you're actually going to be writing these college essays. Maybe do this the summer before your senior year, or if you're transferring, do this probably in August, September, October, if you already know that you're wanting to transfer, and then end up writing your essays over your Christmas break. But yeah, then you're able to just keep returning back to them and assessing, are these still relevant? Okay, so the first thing that I want for everybody to do, and you can actually work along with this video if you want, is write down, what is your story? Create a timeline. Get out a piece of paper, write it down. What are the actual most important moments of your life? I mean, write down anything. Was it that you got some crazy award at school? Because chances are it probably wasn't. That is probably not the most impactful thing. because that's the thing, is words are just momentary. But maybe it was you had this realization. Maybe you visited someplace and saw a population that was in need, and it just hit you, oh my goodness, this is a completely different lifestyle than anything I've ever witnessed. The next question is, what is your purpose and what are your values? So that's sort of a nice existential question. What is your purpose? And the way that I like to define purpose is, what are you wanting to contribute to the world? So what do you think your role specifically is within the world? Are you a speaker? Are you a storyteller? Are you an artist? Give yourself a role and give yourself a task. And then after that, spend maybe 5 minutes writing down, like, what are your values? Do you value trust, confidence, intelligence? What are those values? What do you want to convey? And then review that list a few minutes later and think, which of those values do you possess? And which of those do you want to learn and adapt into yourself? Because that's part of emotional intelligence, is identifying your strengths, but also your weaknesses, and learning to grow into those. So the way that this person posed it was, be the person I needed when I was growing up. Who did you need when you were growing up? Who did you wish as a child that you would become? What are the characteristics of that person? The next thing is to think about your role models. And then this is especially helpful for college essays, because a lot of them will even ask you about, like, who in your community has influenced you? What community are you a part of? And understanding your role models in a realistic sense can really help you. It can also help you with the Why Us essay, because you might want to mention a specific professor at that university that you're trying to attend, and identifying, like, which people are close to your role models, which people resemble your role models, is absolutely critical. So this person described a professor, a dean, I'm not entirely certain who this is, and then Audrey Hepburn, a celebrity figure. However, you could also talk about who in your family has really inspired you. And I will caution, whenever you're writing essays about family members, remember to always direct it back to you. That person taught you something, so what have you learned from that, and what are you going to implement in the future? What have you already done based on that value that they instilled in you? The next question is, what is your inspiration? And so this person had an American businessman. They had a book. This is probably also a book. And then a certificate program. So what have been some of those important influences? For example, like Columbia University tries to ask you about, like, what mediums have you engaged with? What mediums do you engage with on a regular basis? Which books have you read that you really were impacted by? So think about those things. What mediums, what media have shaped you? What did they teach you? Why did it specifically stick with you? The next thing is, well, this is kind of a lot of things. But to create an ethical framework within your essays, three of the biggest things are identifying your joy blockers, your joy builders, and your single biggest thing. And especially learn early on what is your single biggest thing, because you want for that to be what resounds throughout all of your essays. So I didn't really know that whenever I was in my senior year. I sort of just was like, oh yeah, I was involved in X, Y, and Z, and there wasn't that cohesive narrative. You want to figure out what is that for you. And thankfully, I have discovered that while going through the transfer application process, that my single biggest thing is finding that intersection between environmental issues and human rights. And then when you're thinking of your joy builders and your joy blockers, like, there are so many questions out there that ask you about what brings you joy. And that doesn't have to be something academic. That doesn't have to be something that is, oh yes, it brought me joy to win a Google Scholar, competition. What brings you joy could be having good communication with your friends, having meaningful discussions with your family, dancing, being out in nature, leading younger people, giving presentations even. I know that's something that brings me joy, is I love giving presentations. I love doing public speaking. But then also identifying what your joy blockers are, because those provide like meaningful situations that you can draw from whenever essays are asking you about like what was an obstacle that you overcame, what blocked your joy in the past that you were able to overcome it, and what did you learn from that. So here is a little bit further on that. So when you're thinking about your joy blockers, like what is getting in the way of your joy? Heck, this could even be what is your goal in the future and what is standing in the way of that at home, at school, in your personal relationships. And then on your worst day, what happened? And how did you overcome that? Or how did you not? And how did you feel that day? And then with your joy builders, what would grow your joy? And so think about when you felt your most purposeful, powerful, and joyful. And also, if you're stuck on trying to decide what you want your major to be or what school you want to go to, honestly, thinking about that is really, really powerful. Because I know I sat there and I thought about it, because there are a lot of things that you think will be more impactful on your life than they actually are. And the things that sound good on paper are almost never the things that actually are what brings you the most joy. So whenever I personally think about like what were my most joyful days, I usually think about leading younger girls in Girl Scouts, doing workshops with them, sitting there chatting with them. And so I have made sure to include that in just about every essay that I have created in this process. So then this next slide goes back to what I previously discussed, which is discover like what is your purpose. And so this sort of gives you a checklist of discovering your single biggest thing. So it even provides a little prompt that you guys can do. And so put a check next to the joy builders that feel the biggest and most important. So if you wrote out a list of, oh, I love dancing, I love going for walks, I love hanging out with my friends, which of those is actually the most important to you? And then which one would make the biggest difference if you started working more towards it today? If you are still in high school and you're trying to think of a passion project to complete, that is a great exercise, especially given that this whole presentation that I'm pulling from is indeed about developing projects and project ideas. And then they even create examples. So if you guys are wanting to do passion projects, this is all applicable. So creating a podcast that people actually listen to, that gets your message out about whatever topic it is. Finishing writing a novel. I have known people who have gotten into great universities from publishing a book. And then after that, prioritize what you value most. So when we're talking about our values, I had you write them down earlier, or hopefully you end up writing them down. And so actually in the program that I was a part of, we had to do this. They had a whole list of different values and we had to circle like what were the ones that were important to us. And then we had to narrow it down to 15. And then we had to narrow it down to 5. And then we had to narrow it down to 1. What is your single greatest value? And then whenever you're looking for schools, think about that value. There are some schools that value like intellectual curiosity the most. There are some schools that value community service the most. There are some schools that value diversity the most. And then also you want to make sure that you are reflecting that value in your essays. And then when you're defining your purpose, look back at that joy builder list. What brings you joy and energizes you? Is there something that you need or feel called to do? This is something that I feel all the time. Like I feel like sometimes I end up in leadership roles without even trying, because it's just something that people needed you to do. It's not like I was like, oh yeah, sign me up. I am just dying to do this task, and have so much more work to do. It's because I realized, okay, this program will struggle if I don't fill this role. And I feel like I could do a good job in this role, and I would create a meaningful difference within it. And then what comes naturally to you? Are you a musician? Are you an artist? What do other people appreciate most about you? And this is where you can ask your friends, ask your family, like, how would they describe you? Make sure that as you're collecting this information, like, form that image of this is your story, this is how you want to portray yourself to others. And then try to write a purpose statement and make sure that it aligns with your values. And then this sentence right here is absolutely critical. Your purpose is what you contribute to the world. And that's sort of what I said earlier, but that's just a reiteration. All right, so I hope that this was helpful. And please let me know if these strategies help you at all. Like, once again, building projects is super similar to building that story, because whenever you're developing projects, an important part is sharing it with other people, and that's how you get funding, that's how you get support. So you have to develop like that cohesive narrative of why are you doing what you're doing, how are you doing it, what is the outcome. And you can absolutely use that whenever you're thinking about essays. And so if my transfer essays are successful, I can definitely share some more specific strategies that I used. However, I think that this would be a great place to start. Treat your essays like you're writing a story, and treat it like it's a project, and you have to document it from beginning to end. And especially focus on why you have done everything that you have done. There is a purpose behind everything. There is a reason behind why everything has happened. You need to get to the root of it, do some deep reflection, and then pour your heart out. And then, of course, edit it down to like 50 to 250 words. So good luck with that part. But anyway, I hope you found this helpful. Remember, once again, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys later.